Okay, now we're going to grade for the different stretch ratios for our top foundation. I've already drawn my XY axis. I've turned this sideways so it'll be a little easier for me to reach. But here's the Y, here's the negative Y, the negative X, and the X. So you'll need to have that drawn on your paper before you get started. And then I've traced my top foundation already on the paper. So I also transferred the apex here so you can see. I labeled this my horizontal balance line because that's the line that we're keeping even. But I put my apex on there so that we have that marked. Okay, so now we're going to start with this one by moving this to this first 1/4 inch mark. So let me tell you these marks that we put on here. So I put one at 1/4 inch, one at 1/2 inch, one at 3/4, one at 1 inch, and one at 1.5 inches. And these will be all the measurements that we need to grade these to the negative ease. So right now, like I said, we're set at our moderate stretch, our minimal stretch, excuse me. We're going to do it to our moderate stretch. So the first we're going to move is to this 1/4 inch. We're going to keep this line lined up. That's our horizontal balance line to make sure it stays straight. And we're going to slide this to the 1/4 inch mark. So make sure that this line is still lined up here, because if it tilts one way or the other, you're going to have an incorrect grade. So I'm going to use my blue marker so that it matches what our hip foundation was. And on this time, all we're going to trace right now is going to be our shoulder tip and down the armhole just about 1/3 of the way. So you can see that's all I've traced right there. Okay, then we're going to move our pattern again, because this bottom part, remember our hip foundation, we moved 1/2 inch. So to keep our waistlines the same, I'm going to have to move this to the 1/2 inch mark. So I'm going to slide this over to my 1/2 inch mark. Make sure that you're keeping it lined up with your horizontal balance line. We're going to trace from the bottom of the armhole, down the side seam, and the waistline. Okay. So you can see what we've got going on there. So yes, this part right here isn't connected yet. We'll do that later. As we're doing this, you'll notice we're not retracing the neckline. The neckline doesn't change from one stretch ratio to the other because it's such a small line and it doesn't really move that much. So we're not going to worry about tracing this part. We're just going to be redoing basically from the high point shoulder to the shoulder tip to the underarm to the waistline and back to center. So this will be our moderate stretch foundation, and we'll fill in those gaps in a minute. Our next one will be our very stretchy foundation. And we're going to move, same thing again. We're actually going to be at the 1/2 inch mark. Make sure we're still lined up, and we're just going to draw this shoulder tip area. About 1/3 down the armhole. Now we're going to move to the 3/4 inch mark. Excuse me, the 1 inch mark. Make sure you're still lined up. It's something you've always got to keep your eye on. And we're going to mark the underarm, down the side seam, and the waistline. Okay, just like with our hip foundation, I'm not going past this point right here. So once you trace this, they all start blending into this one point right here. Okay, next we need to do our very stretchy foundation. So I'm going to put this on the 3/4 inch mark. Line this back up. And this is our super stretchy foundation. We're going to come shoulder tip, down the armhole 1/3. And then we're going to move this all the way over to the 1.5 line. Get yourself lined up there again. And the underarm, down the side seam to your center front. Okay, so you can see this part graded just fine. We're going to need to connect these lines now and then blend in this section here. So usually what I do is take my armhole, the pattern that I already have, and use that to blend in my armhole. Okay, so this one got a little wonky. We can go back with our French curve and fix that. But that would be how you blend in your armhole. And as you're using your pencil, this should be easier for you to do. Okay, so we got that one a little bit straightened out. So we still need to do our shoulders. You just get your grid ruler for this. And we're going to connect the high point shoulder to our shoulder tip. And there you have all of your top foundations. So we have our we have our minimal stretch, our moderate stretch, our very stretch, and our super stretchy. Okay. So now we'll need to make some of these shorter for the very stretchy and the super stretch. Remember, we need to reduce the length of it because the fabric stretches so much. The way you would do that is to give ourselves a guideline, kind of like what we did on our hip foundation. And we're going to reduce in this area right here a total of 1/2 inch. And in this area right here, the total of 1 inch. So we'll go ahead and draw our lines up here. So we'll come across here, drop down 1/2 inch, come across again. This will be the part that you take out for the stretch, for the 4-way stretch. And then down here, we're going to take out 1 inch. Okay, with these lines, I've always made sure that I'm squaring out from this line here. So these lines are not at an angle. They're squared out exactly from our center line. So make sure that you're doing that and keeping your line square. Okay, so like we did with our hip foundation again, we're going to fold these out. Okay, and then you'll need to reblend your lines here. And then these actually came out pretty good, but you might need to reblend these lines as well. So to reblend the lines down here at the bottom, you would just take your ruler and connect the underarm to the waist. Okay, so that would give us a new line here. So once again, if I was going to do these, I would retrace them on a different piece of paper so that I have this always to go back and reference to. You can always cut them out and cut out each individual line right here and trace it and then come back in for your armhole. What I showed you here was the back, because we still have our back armhole here with our front armhole on the inside of it. Our back neckline here with our front neckline on the inside of that. So what we were tracing here was actually our back. You could cut out these and make these be your back pattern and then go back on each one of these and retrace where that front neckline would be and where the front armhole would be. All the rest of the grading would stay the same. So you could just put that on there and go ahead and make them for both. So I'm going to go ahead and spread these back out for right now. When I trace this out, I would trace it out as though it was a 2-way stretch to begin with, and then change my super stretchy and my very stretchy to be the 4-way stretch and take out that extra length. Okay, thank you.